This video is sponsored by overpro.net. Check out the link in the video description to learn more. In a game like Overwatch, voice chat often seems like a necessity. People are blamed for refusing to join active conversation in a competitive game on a regular, but after uploading one of my more recent videos talking about one-tricks, an interesting discussion popped up in the comment section, and that relates to whether or not voice chat might actually be overrated in Overwatch. And I started to think to myself, I never thought about it that way. So today, my friends, we're going to talk about voice chat in Overwatch, the advantages and downsides of using it or refusing to do so. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Voice chat is something that's being heavily pushed by the likes of myself, alias YouTube content creators. When it comes down to the questions of ranking up and improving your gameplay performance, there seems to be no way around communicating with others. But where does that stance come from? It's not like we all saw the option to join voice chat and figured that this made it a necessity. I mean, swapping heroes is also a function, and as we have discussed, a fair amount of players consciously decide against using it. So let's kick things off with the advantages. What do players hope to gain by joining voice chat? The most obvious benefit would be negating poor game sense. Obviously 12 eyes see more than 2, so having the entire team pay attention to things like enemy flankers and then have them call out for it is a great benefit. In the same vein, agreeing to a certain direction in the match can help a lot. With a game featuring so many heroes, we have access to a wide variety of different comps and playstyles. Making sure that everyone is on the same page no matter which playstyle I prefer is important. It doesn't help the team if one guy decides that he wants to play dive but the rest of their team decides to play a more standard comp. Cohesion in team comp and team play can often make or break a match. But we're also talking about very basic things. No matter what kind of team comp you play, it's important to agree on things like target priority. Now, some people will tell you that this should be obvious and it comes naturally with experience, but sometimes you encounter a comp that you haven't played against before, or you oppose a player who's significantly better at their role than the average enemy you've seen before, thus possibly making them a higher priority target. There are some obvious targets. Mercy obviously has to die quickly enough so she can't rest, but not so fast that she can get back before the teamfight is over. Zarya is very often a high priority target because of her defensive potential, the fact that she gets stronger the longer the teamfight lasts, and her game deciding ultimate. Zenyatta shares a similar position because of how strong Discord Orb is, as also his ultimate that can easily negate most of the things that you can throw at the enemy team. But what if the enemy team features all three of those heroes? Making sure your team is always on the same page and attacks targets together rather than splitting up their damage becomes vital. Target priority can also change the course of a match depending on who you might think is close to an ultimate. And in other circumstances, focusing the enemy hit scan first to give your Pharah free reign might be more important than killing the Mercy, because once that hit scan is gone, your Pharah can go wild on the remains of the enemy team anyway. And if you don't, you have a player on your team who is essentially a dead pick. And of course, we also have ultimate combos. Perception can always be a weird thing on an individual basis if you don't hear what your team has to say. You might think that you can pull off a 6k with your Dragon Blade and gracefully ignore the fact that your Zarya only has 5% to go until she gets her Graviton Surge. And then you promptly pull your blade, get hooked and end up doing nothing, or you only kill a couple enemies when you could have had them all. So it's not like it's difficult to figure out that you can combo a lot of ultis with either Grav or Nano Boost, but timing them is another story entirely. Because even if you using your own ultimate individually is not a big deal, a lack of communication can make your team accidentally dump all of them during a single team fight, ending up defenseless during the very next push. And that's a point that people like to neglect as well when we talk about individual perception and decision making, because players, no matter how experienced, make misplays. Sometimes when you play McCree, you're so focused on trying to shoot the Genji that you don't realize there's a Reinhardt charging at you. Tunnel visioning on trying to kill somebody is a big reason for why players lose focus on things that matter, and that includes anticipating ultimates, enemies flanking, or just the fact that they're out of position. So having your team hit you up with a reminder to disengage or warn you that something is coming can be a godsend when you did not pay attention to it. And before we get into the downsides, let's quickly summarize the advantages. You can exchange important information such as enemies flanking or that you anticipate an enemy ultimate and suggest your team to position themselves accordingly. You can agree on targets to make sure your damage is not wasted. By that, you stop unnecessarily feeding into support ultimates, as also end a team fight as quickly as possible to make sure you're not in a position where you get overrun by either the enemy respawn or their ultimates. Seriously guys, target priority clarity is so important in so many ways. You can combo ultimates, time your ultimates with your team, and discuss which ones you want to invest for each given engagement, to make sure you don't accidentally dump all of them at the same time. And lastly, you can help avoiding mistakes by reminding people of their positioning or warning them from an incoming threat when they seem to tunnel vision. Obviously, we can also add the fact that sometimes you meet people who are really fun to talk to and you end up enjoying a match more as a result, but I'm trying to focus solely on gameplay benefits here. Now, what could possibly be bad about joining voice chat if, given what I said so far, it seems so essential? Well, let's start with the most obvious point again. If you do not join voice chat, you deny your team all these benefits that we talked about. A team who actively communicates by that has a massive advantage against your team that doesn't. And even if it's just you who's not on voice, that's 2 eyeballs and 1 mouth less to spot and warn your team from incoming threats that maybe nobody else saw, and depending on your role, that can be a big deal. Maybe you're a high mobility character who has an angle on the battlefield that no one else has, so your information can be vital. But when it comes down to it, what I really think is the biggest deal is toxicity. Now, I want to dismiss the notion that Overwatch is worse than any other game. Every single massively popular competitive game will inevitably have to deal with a toxic community. I've talked about what I think why competitive games, and Overwatch in particular, seemingly make people so toxic, so if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But at the end of the day, it's a gamble, and a very annoying one at that. Don't listen to people who claim that one game is worse than another, or even in Overwatch specifically that one ranked division is worse than any other. It is entirely 100% random whether or not you run to somebody who's toxic. You will have people who have bad luck and make bad experiences all the time, but you'll also have those who don't think it's a big deal at all because they rarely ever run into it. However, from what I have gathered and from my very own reasoning, that is why so many people throw away all the benefits from being in voice chat. And this isn't just a matter of, oh, you just have to man up, you pansy, or you can just block them. Because ultimately, a lot of people just care about one thing: having a pleasant gameplay experience. And if they figure that they rather achieve this by staying the heck away from voice chat, then they will do that. If you don't have to deal with toxic people all the time, you don't get annoyed anywhere near as quickly. That means you can play longer without being tilted. Sometimes when I play privately and I had like 3 games in a row with somebody being dumb and toxic, I already don't feel like playing this game anymore. It does not matter that I can block them or that I get an entirely new team next time, because I already am annoyed with the dumb shit that they said. And everyone has their own personal threshold when it comes to how much of that they're willing to endure. While I would personally say that I don't care if people curse all the time, what bugs me is when people are obviously and painfully wrong, suggesting the stupidest plays, misplaying themselves, and then blaming their team. That kind of shit annoys me, and if I'm exposed to that all the time, it just makes me not want to play. So if I just disable voice and text chat so I never have to see or hear anything that annoys me, I can play for the full 2 to 4 hours that I originally intended rather than stopping after 1. And I'll have a more pleasant experience doing that even if I lose more. Needless to say that I can focus more on my gameplay with nobody being toxic in voice chat, and thus possibly also even perform better. So I might be giving up on the benefits of having my team call things out, but the state of concentration that I gain by focusing only on the game might allow me to see and hear all these things myself anyway. It obviously means that I have to adjust my playstyle, making decisions like when to use my ultimate become much more difficult. I can get away with just pinging my ultimate percentage to let my team know how far I am, or by repeatedly doing so let them know that I am ready to combo, but obviously it is not the same as actually talking about it and strategizing. For some players who main off meta heroes or those who are one tricks, not joining voice chat also often seems like the better option. The community is often very dead set on which heroes they consider viable in which situations, so if you do play something that's unpopular, you often experience a lot of toxicity coming your way, and in a bunch of circumstances it is a matter of your team not knowing what's good for them. If you're not on voice, they can't argue with you. They might just accept your pick based on that, and if you're actually good at what you're doing, they might just have an easy time winning. That is, again, assuming that you actually are good at playing off meta rather than being someone who blames their team. But yeah, if you are one such player, then having to listen to people whine does not only impair your performance but also their own. So let's quickly summarize again. While you consciously drop all the benefits of being in voice chat, you gain the advantage of having a clear state of mind throughout your entire session. Without the distraction and possibly the annoyances that are associated with being in voice chat, you can focus solely on your gameplay and by that perform better than you otherwise would have. While you give up additional information through callouts from your teammates, you do have the possibility to see and hear these things yourself. Given that you are aware of the disadvantage that you put yourself into by refusing to join voice chat, a lot of people often put more effort into their gameplay as a result. For some players, not joining voice chat often seems like the best or their only option because they prefer prefer to play heroes that often experience a lot of hostility. For experienced players, not joining voice chat often is not as big of a deal as for those who are new to the game, because there's a lot to learn and get used to, so having more eyes and ears on the battlefield is a good thing. At the end of the day, it's all about enjoying our time playing a video game. Some people don't care about toxicity in voice chat or don't often encounter it, so they can just take the advantage of being on voice chat given that their team does the same and actually communicates. Others might be less fortunate and encounter it very regularly. For those of us who just want to have a good time and do our thing, voice chat can be a risk that we're not willing to take. Do keep in mind that this video is very much focused on the extreme case scenarios. Yes, I know that there's a lot in between. Only because you're on voice does not mean that people will even say a word, or that the things that they do say benefits you in any way. In the same vein, not every toxic encounter is really all that bad. Personally, when I play on my main account in my spare time, I always join voice chat until I have been proven that there's no point to it. If my team argues all the time, I'll just leave, but I do usually try to stay in it as much as possible just for the chance of valuable information. When I stream, that is another story entirely. I'm mostly just looking to have a good time with chat, so there will be days where I refuse to join voice chat to begin with, which usually is not that much of a big deal because my old account's rating is not something that I care about all that much, and I do happen to have a lot of hours logged into the game, so I can often compensate for it. Again, for less experienced players, that could be more of a downside. But this is me done for the day as I talk about voice chat in Overwatch, the advantages and disadvantages of using it. If you enjoyed the video, do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out, subscribe if you want to see more, and hope to see you all next time.
Hello, my name is Skipjack and today I'll cover some of the pros and cons of Winston.
Oh, that is...
Good. 57% kill participation and 52% defensive assist kill participation. We literally killed 109% of the team. GG. I know it's not how that works, but whatever. I'll take it anyway.